Welcome to another episode of Ninjas with Altitude, a skydiving podcast made by a sky nerd for other sky nerds. Join Paul Capsey, part of Skydive Euphoria's AFF, FS and Freefly coaching school in the sunny Algarve, and then stay at the Jump Lodge B&B with Paul and Elle, skydiver accommodation run by skydivers for skydivers. So without further ado, straight back into the conversation. A question I wanted to ask you, because this is something on my personal, not agenda, but like on my I guess my skydiving to-do list. Like, I'd love to go and play with a space ball, man, one day. Like, but in the UK, we haven't got anywhere where we can play with a space ball. Like, are you allowed to play with a space ball out in Algarve?
No,
See,
no,
sucks,
I'm afraid
man.
not.
It sucks.
Yeah, it's only really because it's so built up. There are drop zones out there where it's all just sort of farmland and everything, but around Algarve, there's so many houses and that kind of thing. There is one chap who's allowed to sky surf there, but he's already got like crazy amounts of experience.
Yeah.
And he must get out over the estuary area where there again isn't actually anybody.
Okay. Does he land on the beach then, or does he sky surf back to the DZ?
No, I mean he'd have to sort of deploy and everything over the estuary.
Okay.
Which if you've got a westerly breeze, then it's easy for you to get back. In fact, most of the time with AFF, the westerly breeze is the most common direction, and it's you can have a really deep spot and get back easily.
Yeah,
it's not actually that far away from the DZ, to be honest.
Man, I love that DZ. It's lush. Like, I remember doing a beach jump there with Dan Crawford, and we spent time meticulously planning the jump, and Dan Crawford didn't jump the plan, so but we had fun. So that's for being
probably
a prick.
Deserve that.
Yeah, exactly. That's for being a prick and not sticking to the plan. But his face was brilliant, man, because he was in free fall. Obviously, as soon as he felt it, I was like, "Yeah, bye." But,
yeah,
that was good.
So we're talking about the Spaceball stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to, Spaceball-wise, just wanted to show this bit of Olav. And I want you to have a look quite carefully at what he's doing around that ball.
Okay.
And have a look at his proximity to the ball. He never moves more than about 6 foot away at a maximum.
Yeah.
And the stuff that he's doing around the ball and the proximity to it, he's going blind to the ball. He's totally on point with it. He's picking it up. Even doing this action, trying to hold your hands behind your back is difficult.
Yeah, man.
And then he's got these cartwheels.
Look at that.
And that was that to me, that proximity is very much lost when you come to sort of see the next thing that we're going to watch.
Okay.
But my big point is that everyone thinks that they're better than they used to be.
Yeah.
But are they really? And I'll tell you what, we'll just play that bit again. This was part of the dolphin test. Okay, so what you would do is you do this series of moves in proximity to a space ball.
Yeah.
You'd get it filmed by someone, and then you would send that footage off to Olav, and he would give you your Dolphin 1 or your Dolphin 2.
Yeah.
Because you are the atmosphere dolphin.
Yeah.
And that was effectively like, your FF1 sticker.
But in Olav's book, is it?
Yeah. Now this next clip coming up is some young chap who got a world medal or whatever he did.
Yeah.
But I want us to look carefully at what he's really doing here, right? He's spinning around the ball as if he's in the wind tunnel, just carving around it.
Yeah.
His proximity is often nowhere near as close. He's drifted away massively there.
A little bit there.
He doesn't do all of the complicated stuff that Olav's doing, as in the cartwheels, going blind to it.
Exactly. It's missing a
all
little
those
bit
kind
of
of things. I know I'm not sort of belittling his skills at all, but when we sort of have this notion that we are now much better free flyers than we used to be, I would say that what Olav is doing around this baseball is in a different league. At the end of that, there was a little hashtag that said, hashtag enough said. I don't mind someone said hashtag enough said if what he had done there was infinitely better than what they were doing in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
But it seriously wasn't, and it was very much tunnel flying around a space ball.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas what Olaf was doing was very much skydiving around the space ball, proving his proximity, proving his ability to move his entire body. So everyone these days seems to be absolutely hell-bent on being completely straight with their body.
Yeah.
And apparently you look really, really sexy if you turn your feet out as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, if you haven't turned your feet out, then you're doing it wrong. You just are. Which is obviously ridiculous.
True.
And everyone's sort of super straight body, and we're basically now in a time where we're tunnel flying in the sky versus skydiving in the sky.
Yes.
And if you go back to the early 90s where they didn't have the tunnels, they were just simply skydiving in the sky.
Yep.
And we all know that the tunnel is very, very restrictive as far as the types of maneuvers you can do. So I used to teach my students a cartwheel from a skydive point of view, but I think I'm possibly one of the last people to ever teach in the tunnel cartwheels to anybody. I think it's a valuable thing.
I gotta be honest, I've always cheated, man. When I think cartwheel, I think, or at least how I teach just a normal backflip, sit the head down. But then what I teach people to do is, if I'm picking my head in fact, I'll use the fella for this. So if I'm picking my head in as the computer, I'm then saying, okay, what I'm then going to do is I'm simply going to do a 90-degree turn, and I'm going to keep looking ahead. So now I've changed my head in. Then I'm going to do my backflip transition, stabilize, and then I'm going to turn back. Right, now all I've done there is I've completely broken down the fast version of maintaining this head in with your head and just rotating your body around up into head down. And then as I do this, what I teach them to do, or how I get them to do it, is to kind of maintain the head in, but then look at kind of like a 45-degree angle so that they can just see me out of the corner of their eye. So starting to teach this transition whilst looking over there, So as I say, it's not necessarily a cartwheel that I teach. It's a bastardized cartwheel, essentially. And as I say, that's how I was taught, and I found it was a very good method. But I think this kind of gets back to what you were saying about the hashtag, like I think I see your point completely, and I kind of tend to agree with you. What I think should have been included in that video of the tunnel flyer, he should have been doing all those cartwheels as well as what he was doing. If he was doing those kinds of trick flying transitions at the same time as this super cool carving around the ball thing, then arguably then he's kind of taken what Olav's done a step further. But what I was seeing there, in my opinion, is him doing new stuff, smoother and all the rest of that, but he's forgetting that side of the skill, you know? Do you know, so
Well,
do you- I think it's good.
there's
but
other
it's-
bits of video as well of Olav carving around the ball, and he's, he never leave. He's no more than 6 inches away from the ball while
Yeah,
he's carving around it as well.
yeah.
There's other video of that.
There's a lot more
Here's a
control.
question for you. Like when you go ahead and do that, do the big wave flips in the tunnel and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have your guys at the end of the thing? Are they doing pure cartwheels, or do you think they're doing something similar to what you're talking about?
Right. So speaking from, again, my own experience, I'm lucky enough to be able to do a full-on cartwheel. Now, in those circumstances, and I've flown those slots in many moves where I am the cartwheeling end with an opposite partner, and I do, in this context, an old-fashioned cartwheel. So my body stays straight, and I'm rotating around my head. And I think, just as a sort of point on that, through repetition, what I was finding, especially from head down to head up, it's quite weird. You tend to, the first couple of attempts, you tend to do the wrong cartwheel, and then you twist, and it doesn't work. How I got over that, and it made the transition a hell of a lot easier as well, and it flew and opened really nice, was if you're in a cartwheel position, a really good tip is to always be the last people to transition. So for instance, if I'm in this round and these guys are going, I'm going to let my arms go while flying, and that's also all I need to do to complete the transition is tuck my chin into my shoulder, and I'm going to roll around the right way. And as I say, it makes everything really nice and smooth. So that's a tip from somebody that weighs 10 stone, flying on the big boy speeds. There is a way to do it. It's all technique. But yeah, so essentially, to answer your question then, Paul, yes, I do old-fashioned cartwheels, but I'll hold my hand up and say I have never taught anybody to do an old-fashioned cartwheel, except in the circumstances I just described. As I'm coaching groups, I have taught it that way,
But also, I suppose that because the cartwheel is such a fast maneuver, or it certainly can be very fast, especially at those higher speeds that you guys are flying at, you almost want to sort of leave it until the very last second. Not even second, like a split moment before you go, because you're going to catch everyone up really fast. And if you went as everyone else went, you would overtake them.
Correct. So for instance, this is why I'm saying, or at least a good way to think about it is to be the last person to transition, is because essentially if you do go early, you fucked it, like you're going to be transitioned before these guys have made any sort of movement. So, and of course then you've swapped the grip over, then they've got to catch up. It just doesn't tend to work. So yeah, as I say, being the last person to transition in those cartwheels is a super handy tip. And I do find it a lot easier to go from head down to head up as well. But I guess that's across the board. It's just easier to roll around this shoulder or this shoulder,
Yeah. You've got the sink and the lift from the right end, whereas if you're already on your head, you're trying to sink your legs.
Yes.
And you're trying to lift the heavy end.
Yes, you got it.
So it's the wrong way around.
Yeah. But it's quite challenging, man. It's quite fun.
I've got another question as well, which I've asked a couple of VFS guys whether it's a thing or not.
Okay.
If a VFS team got into doing a traditional super tight, like Olaf was around that space ball, on the spot cartwheel, would that save some time and would that be a benefit? Because a lot of people simply say, well, we all do the transition that you're talking about, the turning and back again, which everyone's doing very fast.
Yes.
But a cartwheel can be a faster thing again. And when we're talking fractionally.
Yeah, but this is the nitty gritty, man. This is what wins world championships. The nitty gritty is good. So, and again, I've not won a world championship. In fact, just for the viewers, I did come second with my VFS team in the British Indoor Nationals last year, which was a big achievement. Needless to say, there was only 2 teams in the entire competition, so we also came last. But you know, like I say, VFS is what I do like to do, and I guess to answer that question, man, I always tend, if I don't have any grips and I need to do that transition, I just always found that I could transition faster because eventually you don't sort of, if you do break it down and you do the 90-degree turn and then transition and then 90-degree turn, then yeah, okay, it does take more time. But over time, you end up just throwing yourself into it. So supposedly from sitting there to get to head down, rather than just catching some wind on the side of my leg and coming over and trying to stall it out sort of thing, or which you get good at, I'm basically throwing myself into head down, you know. So I do, I guess, to answer that question, I would be of the opinion that this side cartwheel thing is fractionally quicker. But again, that's my opinion, and that it works for my body type and it works for my flying style. But you've given me a bit of food for thought, because another thing I'll add to my little to-do list for when I'm back in work, because I do like to get the odd 10 minutes or 20 minutes for myself to practice my own skills. I'll have a little bit of mess about, man, and I'll sync the videos up, you know, so I can play them side by side of side transitions and cartwheels, and I'll really get into it. I'll even stick a video on YouTube, man, and I might do a little in-depth analysis of these sit to head down transitions. But yeah, in short, I would say, the weird cartwheel is a little bit quicker than the more traditional style. But having said that, would you disagree with me? Like, because it's all opinion, you know.
Well, it's about what you find fastest, right? So if you practiced a particular thing, then you know it's going to be faster for you to do what you practiced, isn't it? That's the bottom line.
Of course it is, man. But it's the same sort of thing. Is okay. Let's take a racing car analogy. If you've never learned a racing line, but you've learned the same lap and you can do it as fast as you possibly can, but you're not taking a racing line, then somebody teaches you the racing line, then you've inevitably sped yourself up. So and this is, like I say, why I'm saying this is because my standard cartwheels are not perfect, man. Like, they need a bit of work, and I'm practicing regularly. Well, not at the moment, but I'm practicing regularly. So maybe I just need to learn that racing line with it just through a bit more practice. Like I say, I'm the kind of geek that will go away and study this now, Paul. Thanks, man. You're going to give me a couple of sleepless nights over this.
So yeah, with this being in probably, I don't know, it looks like it's slowed down a heck of a lot.
Yeah.
He does a full cartwheel in a moment.
And I think a lot of that is down to how much he compresses his legs and his body, right? So he basically
here, look.
Yeah. There's so much control on that transition though, man, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And also Olav is very, very special, Paul. Like, I'm no Olav Zipser. In fact, man, he's a hero of mine. I can remember when I didn't get into skydiving to be a free flyer. I just wanted to jump out of an airplane and see what it was like. And on my ground school, my AFF instructor, Ryan Mancy, I mentioned to him because I had seen on TV about sky surfing. And, you know, the response was, well, we kind of don't really do sky surfing much anymore because it's quite dangerous. But I'm going to show you this guy called Olav Zipser. So on my AFF ground school, he got his iPhone out and I was watching Olav. And don't get me wrong, I didn't aspire to be Olav. I didn't aspire to be a free flyer at all looking at it, but I was so impressed with it. And obviously Ryan, being, I guess, himself a big fan of Olav Zipser, was singing his praises. And he was sort of my hero within skydiving, because Ryan was saying, look, this guy's doing stuff that nobody could do it. And he was the kind of one of the pioneers of it. And I met him out in Imperial Brava a few years ago. I think that was 2017. I never got to jump with him, but I asked him for a photo. I was like a proper fanboy, man. I asked him for a photo and all the rest of it. And I'm like, Olav, I'm going to jump with you one day, man. You're my hero. And I will make it happen. He's a fucking legend, man. And
yeah, well, I think The last I heard, he was creating a drop zone in Botswana. I think he may well have moved on from doing that now.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think you've got to go to Southern Africa to jump with him now.
that's cool, man. Yeah,
But
you know what I
that'd be
mean?
an adventure in its own right.
It would, and if I can take the equipment, you know what I mean, I can do a wicked podcast with Olav if he's up for it.
Yeah.
Like, man, even his poems and things like that, you know, he's super. I can put, he's in the moment, isn't he, man?
Yeah.
Olav. Brilliant.
So this bit of footage is Olav on flying around a 40-way.
Yeah.
This is a little bit we were talking about earlier with, you know, suit choices and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, anyone who knows anything about a big way like this knows that it's falling much, much slower than a conventional, you know, person skydiving. So if someone conventionally is falling at, say, 120, when you link everyone together like that, they're probably falling at about 100.
Yeah.
Which makes it even more incredible how he's sort of dancing around this thing with pure, you know, complete accuracy.
Yeah.
Managing to stop static in the middle of the whole thing. You know, flying head down in that.
Yep.
In a group like that.
Look at him go. But like you say, man, it's definitely a lot of this. Yes, we're not taking anything away from the skill here, but this is a lot of this is down to that jumpsuit selection. You know, you'd never go so slow in one of these new age suits.
Yeah, and he's a tall chap, and there's a lot of material there.
Yeah, so you can go quite. So now, okay, I got a question for you on this subject, man. Because kind of touching back on what you were saying earlier on about having all this instructor time to fly and no time to fly it without, you know, burning yourself out. I used to do stupid stuff, man. Like I used to go and get the biggest jumpsuit I could possibly find, and see how slow I could fly static head down and things. And man, you know, in the biggest suit they had in air kicks or I could fly static head down on a high belly speed, like 72, 73. But the difference in the suit, like even what Olav is wearing there, is a lot tight. Well, there's a lot less drag on the sort of torso area than what I was wearing in the blinking inflatable thing. But the question I had was, I actually found it super, super easy to fly in a super, super, super baggy suit. It just seemed less. I didn't need to push so much on the wind. And I think like this is where nowadays, particularly with tunnel students everywhere, when they do go down the static progression system, should we say, they struggle to pick it up in the beginning, and they inevitably end up spending more time purely because the suit choice is wrong. I do think, like, by all means, once you can fly and you've built up the muscle memory to be able to have enough strength and width in your body to build your own natural range up in a tight suit, in a suit, that's when you can start to go down to the tighter suits then, because it means you can fly slower. But what I'm finding, I did notice a lot, is like these kids being taught now in the tunnel, and the tunnel up in Basingstoke is close to topped out, man, because there's not enough lift on the suit to lift these guys off the net. There's some big dudes learning to fly head down in tight suits, you know. And I'm just thinking, well, if I found it a hell of a lot physically easier to fly in a baggier suit, well, surely that's conducive to the learning process. So I do insist to people a little bit. I never insist totally, but I do insist to people a little bit that when I'm teaching them head down static in the beginning, we're going to go in a student suit and we're going to get a bit of drag on them legs and arms, and it will inevitably help the learning curve sharpen a little bit earlier. But as I say, that's just my methods, man, you know?
Well, I totally agree. And I've had a number of students who, it's quite a hard one when someone spent, you know, £600 on a ton fly or something like that.
Yeah, or the Deem
if
suits.
If you then turn around and say, look, I kind of want you to wear one of these student suits until you can fly this, rather than using your suit. They go, well, I want to fly the suit I've purchased and spent all this money on, because that's what I'm going to be flying.
Correct.
And it then holds them up, and it's not until, you know, the day that suit breaks, the zip breaks, and you go, right, okay, you are now going to have to borrow one of ours because your suit's broken.
Yeah.
And you hand over this suit that's naturally just got much more lift than their previous one. They go, oh, it's so much easier. I should have done this a long time ago. And he's like,
Yep.
well, I did say,
Yeah.
but
That's
you
it, man.
really wanted to fly your new expensive suit. So,
Yeah.
but we did talk about this.
Yeah.
It's effectively like, learning to surf. You learn on a longboard,
Yeah.
and then you go down to something short.
Yeah.
And when I learned to surf as a teenager, the surfboard that was on sale and was a bargain was way too small for me.
Right.
And years I struggled on that thing, years and years and years. And that's the same sort of thing here, just get good in something. I mean, in a way, if you think about the physics behind learning to fly on your head or in your sit, in an ideal world, if you were learning to sit fly, you'd actually like to have a lot of lift on the arms,
Yeah, man.
and have very little lift on the legs, so
Right.
that
Okay.
you're getting lifted from the top of your body,
Yeah.
and your legs have less controlling influence on you. It's a little bit like pumping hot air into a hot air balloon. You're getting lifted by that balloon.
Yeah.
And your legs are going to be the basket. And then that would be an ideal scenario. But if you were learning to fly on your head in an ideal scenario, you'd have relatively sort of slick arms or average arms, but then you'd have a lot of material on the legs to do the same thing, to get that hot air balloon effect.
Yes,
lifting
your light
up.
bit on the top. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But of course, no one's sort of ever going to do that. But what you can do is you can always put less input in with something. So in a sit, you can always have your legs do less and your arms do more, and vice versa. On your head, you get your legs doing more, your arms doing less.
Yeah.
In it.
But I do say to my students, when I'm talking about getting into a student suit, particularly for head down, the way I explain it is, okay, so you do have to, regardless of how fast you're going, you do have to put some kind of tension on the wind in the right body position to maintain the orientation and a static position. Now, the faster we are flying or the faster we're falling, the more tension you have to put to maintain that sort of, how can I put it? Like, even though your arms may be lower, you're still forcing, because the wind is going much faster. You have to have a more physical input. So if you've got the suit doing some of that work for you, meaning you're flying slower, what that means is that the wind is coming onto your arms slower. Therefore, it's a hell of a lot easier to put your arms there, or even too much, than it is on a super high speed, So of course, if you're wearing a skin tight suit learning, then you're gonna be learning 3 steps ahead of where your muscles have developed to, because what flying's like. We use muscles we never thought we had before. Like, look at me, man. I don't have any muscles. I have the flying muscles,
Yeah. Elle's going to bring in something that I came across by accident, which is the sit fly jacket from back in the day.
Yes.
So hopefully we can sort of see this. So it's actually like a shorty, right? It's designed to be worn as shorts, which is kind of what we were talking about earlier, where if you had nothing on the legs.
Yes.
But then you've got this lift here with these 2 almost like pockets that are going to fill up under the arms.
It's kind of like 2 cells of a canopy.
Yeah. So if you wanted to actually learn to sit fly, having never done it before, wearing something like this is going to suddenly make your life a heck of a lot easier.
Yes.
And then once you've gained your skills in that, this is the longboard, you can then, start wearing your conventional suit. It helps
exactly,
you out
man.
a lot.
Yeah, completely agree. I think Keanu now agrees, man, as well. And Patrick Swayze.
In the meantime, if you don't have something like that, and you were somewhere hot, and you're practicing sit fly on your own, then why not wear shorts and, some like baggy sweatshirt on the top.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be doing something along the same kind of lines. At least you're going to be putting the pressure in the right place. And then vice versa. If you're going to learn to fly on your head, then what would be wrong with wearing, say, some really baggy jeans followed by a t-shirt, and then you've got that same difference.
You've got the right dynamic. That's just really going to accelerate your learning curve, man. Really going to accelerate it.
Yeah.
Like, I do like that.
The other thing as well, while we're just talking about suits, is I see at the Algarve quite a lot. Everyone wants to jump in shorts and t-shirt.
Yeah.
But when you're belly flying, you've got a lot more range to either arch more or stretch out more.
Yeah.
And people can wear lead.
Yes.
And that kind of stuff. With free fly, you very much have, sure, you've got a certain amount of range with what you do with your body, but really and truly, it's much better to see two people stood on the flight line who have actually thought a little bit about what they're wearing if they're going to jump together.
Yeah.
So if I see someone who's, 16 stone jumping in a shorts and t-shirt with someone who's 9 stone wearing a jumpsuit, and if I'm jump master and I go, okay, what kind of jump are you doing? You go, we're going to do some sit flying. It's like, okay, have you done this before with each other? And they're like, well, no, but we can both, we've both got our FF1 or whatever. It's like,
cool.
Yeah, but have you actually done the maths on this? This is not going to work, is it? He's going to be way, way below you.
Yep.
And then if they're insistent, then I'll just go, that's fine. Crack on and do your jump, but please have all of those sort of safety aspects in mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's come up with a plan. What are you going to do if you see this guy right down there and you're right up there? How are you going to make that safe, ready for the deployment? So obviously you would ideally be on the same level, when it came to your track away and your deployment. But unless you're absolutely sure it's going to happen, you want to have that backup plan.
For sure, man. For sure.
And one of the easiest things to do is when you have that massive disparity in drag and weight and all the rest of the calculation that makes us fly together.
Yeah.
Then what I found is, rather than two people already coming up with the idea of, well, we're just going to fly in opposite directions, very often one person can't see the other person. Yeah. So you're actually better off having a game plan before you even get on the plane of, right, if this all goes wrong, or even if it doesn't, you're going to track to the north, I'm going to track to the south, and that's the way we're going to go, no matter how this turns out.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you may well cross each other for a moment.
But at least you have a definitive direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, fair
so,
play.
So yeah, I think a lot of people need to think about those jumpsuits and trying to sort of at least have some kind of plan of attack on how to sort of balance the books a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Jumping out of a plane. And inevitably when they land, they go, yeah, he was miles below me.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a waste of jump. Now, what's kind of happened in a way is, from the moment they got out the aeroplane, they're both thrown away their jump ticket, because they can't really work on whatever they want to work on.
No.
Because they're now just concerned about where everyone else is.
Yeah, or at least there's one thing they'll each be working on for the entire skydive until track off. And one will be working on fast fall and one will be working on slow fall. And it's probably not going to be very successful. That's probably the reality, right?
Yeah. It's like, it doesn't matter how much you two like each other. You're such different weights wearing completely the wrong clothing. You're still not going to jump together.
No.
Even if you've wanted to jump together all your life, it's still not going to happen. And you can't will it to happen.
You got it, unless you change the clothes, swap clothes. But yeah, that's a super important thing, man. And it is worth people keeping that in mind when they are looking for jumpsuits and things like that. Keep in mind, it's good to look cool and shit, but it's also good to fly relative to somebody without having to bust a ball, or actually to make it possible to fly relative to people. Because at the end of the day, we learn it pretty quickly on our consolidation jumps that, yeah, it's awesome jumping out of an aircraft on your own, but you actually want to be with people and you want to be close to people. That's, you want to enhance the fun. So, so yeah, jumpsuit selection, really important for people, man. It's things they should keep in mind.
Yeah, and I think it's actually not a difficult thing to get right either.
No.
We can sort of put some guidelines out there now. So if you are, for example, between 8 and 10 stone, then you want to have a very, very slick suit, ideally Lycra.
Yes.
If you're between 10 stone and 12 stone, then you're right in the Goldilocks sort of
you're
weight
right.
band, your average weight to most people. So you want to have like a medium amount of bagginess to your suit.
Yep.
And then if you're 12 to 16 or beyond, you want to just start to have something, much, much baggier.
Varying degrees of bagginess.
Yeah, and getting the right materials in the right place, like Cordura on the arms and the bottom of the legs and stuff.
Yeah, forget about material as well, man. And that's something I'd like to do in the future, actually. I've reached out to a couple of people, but I'd love to get chatting to some jumpsuit manufacturers, because that you just sort of highlighted something for me there was materials, man. Like I'm not knowledgeable at all about materials. And even when it comes to rigging and things, you hear people say, oh, Type 88 webbing, and man, it all goes way. And even with lines and things, I've got a lot that I want to study, like the difference between Dacron and Vectran and all this,
yeah, it's a bit of a minefield.
Exactly. So I do try and stay within my purview of being an attempted expert at free fly. I'm getting there, man. Speaking to people like yourself and Ali, and obviously the people I'm going to be speaking to in the future, that are going to be educating me and hopefully helping me build my own skill set. Because you never stop learning, man. Do you? Never stop.
And I think as well, you've obviously got just jumping with your mates, free fly wise, and choosing the right suit. But if you're working or you've got an objective, so if you're a cameraman, it's much, much easier in any orientation to go faster. It's easy to go faster, but it's hard to go slower. Now, if you're filming free fly in any capacity as a coach, then you need to keep the guy in frame, and you need to stay close enough that your debriefs can be useful. Now, my objective is to do exactly that, and to get literally every single second on film and be close enough to be useful for the debrief.
Yeah.
And as a result, I wear my old team camera suit.
Yeah, man.
Which it's got Cordura on the arms, Cordura on the legs. It's got nice amount of lift, because when you're filming someone who's new to free fly in particular, they're going to be falling off the fast position going into slow positions. You're going to be changing your speed rate rapidly all the way through the jump. And that's the only way you're going to keep these guys in frame, and that's what you're being paid for. Now, what I have seen a couple of times, which is sort of upsetting a little bit, especially when you hear the debrief. So, they get on the plane and the coach is wearing his tights tunnel suit, and his job is cameraman. Well, when I then listen to the debrief, they very often say, oh, well, you're a long way away from me here because you weren't doing this and you weren't doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, they're going to be doing that anyway.
Yes.
Right? That's the nature of them learning something new. They're going to be changing their speeds. They're going to be doing different stuff. And you sinking out that's not their fault.
Correct. Man, I guess to equate that to kind of tunnel stuff, man, it's the equivalent of kind of like spotting somebody learning to sit fly, and then when they fly backwards into the wall and you didn't stop them, that's because you didn't go with them. That's like saying, well, yeah, it's because you did this. It's like, well, of course, but I'm here for the learning process to learn how not to do that, and it's your job to fucking hold on to, or that's the eternal equivalent. But yeah, the same
Yeah.
happens in the sky, man, and it's
Yeah.
we've said it time and again, it's a big old place in that sky,
Yeah.
and I think you're right in saying you can always go faster rather than slower. I am lucky that I'm on the light side of the Goldilocks kind of bracket, where I do have a very large range in a tight suit because my natural speed is very slow. So essentially, as I've learned how to fly, I've had to just learn how to fly fast. Well, because like I say, I cannot automatically, just because of my physiological build, I can naturally go slower, say, than yourself or the majority of people out there. Because if you think, if you look at it like a
Right.
natural distribution chart, and what you find, I will flash it back up here actually from last week. But if that's the middle ground, say these are all the really light people, and like this is percentage of the population then. So really light people, there's not many. As you start to get heavier, there's more people. Then the most people are the average weight, and then it starts to tail back off the other side. And then the heavier you get, the less people there are. So as I say, I'm naturally down here, which means, well, the middle speed is there. So my natural speed is, I need to be faster. I need some kind of input to be faster. So I am lucky enough that I can generally fly with anything in a tight-ish suit. But then if I'm wearing something baggy and it's going particularly fast, particularly belly flying, that's when I start to struggle. So but yeah, for free fly, man, yeah, I can go fast in baggy stuff because, we both of us, I guess, we've been exposed to so much tunnel time in these weird and wonderful suits and spending most of our time messing around, essentially. That you work these things out, man, don't you?
Yeah, well, in Milton Keynes, which was slower anyway, we were all issued with relatively baggy suits so that we could fly everything. And now the tunnels have got faster and more efficient.
There's no need for
well,
them.
we can get away with everyone wearing tighter suits, but like you're saying earlier, the tunnels are basically running at sort of crazy speeds
just to keep them up,
to do the same job. Well, what are we really doing there? Just burning more electricity for not much
100%.
use. And I know all of this, like, oh yeah, the suit flies really amazingly.
Yeah, it does, but it depends on the application.
It's not really a thing so much, is it?
Or maybe it's not the suit flies so well. It's like, oh, I can feel my body flying so well because it's so responsive because the suit is obviously so tight. But it's more like that also just depends on what bloody application you want the suit to have. Like say if you're around the top end of the scale, if you're quite heavy, well, yeah, the tight suit is only going to suit you if you want to do solos or if you want to jump with other heavy people. Exactly, kind of reverting back to what you said earlier on about these two different people jumping together with the wrong equipment. So even without getting in the air with anybody, we can at least shed a little bit of light on that for them as well. Super important,
but,
man.
Just to backtrack slightly with the coach that doesn't keep the guy in frame because he's sunk out because he's not wearing the right suit. When he's very often you'll never hear someone saying, "Oh, that was my fault. I sunk out there. I should have like preempted that you were going to go onto your belly or your back, and I should have been with you." But that didn't happen. Now that kind of honesty, the student really, really respects. But what actually happens is the totally negative action, which is, okay, as the coach, I don't want to look like I'm the one doing something incorrect.
Yes.
So I'm going to say to this guy, oh, well, you were really lifty because you didn't do this and you didn't do that. That's why I was underneath you. You should have seen me below you and you should have done this and you should have done that.
Yeah.
And the guy comes away from it thinking, God, that was a really rubbish skydive. Like I really didn't do the right thing there.
Yeah.
I should have done this stuff. And he did tell me before, but when I was in the sky, I kind of forgot.
Yeah.
And it just sort of puts this massive downer for that poor guy who's trying to learn this thing. He's paid his money, and he needs to try to feel positive about it. And I found that with tunnel and skydiving, if someone doesn't feel positive about their learning experience, you get what I call the dark clouds. Like the dark clouds enter the mind, and they don't go away until good things happen.
Until it's pissed all over you, man.
Yeah, you need a good number of very good skydives to get rid of this frustration and the dark clouds, and then maybe you'll start to get back again. But usually, once the dark clouds enter, they stay there until the end of the day, and
Sounds
then
like
the guy needs to go to sleep and then attack it the next day. And hopefully, the dark clouds have gone. But if they haven't, then you potentially got another day of someone feeling very negative about their own skills and ability. All because the coach was wearing a suit that was too tight. He sunk out. He decided to blame the student so that he didn't look like he was the one doing the wrong thing. And it's just like this sort of horrid cycle of dishonesty. When in reality, the guy should have just gone, my fault. I should have. You're paying me to keep you in free. That's what you're paying.
This is it, But people are not aware of it. But I'm
very
definitely...
easy to sort of put it onto the student and say, well, you should have done this and you should have done that.
Yeah, man.
But seriously negative for the poor guy who's paying the money out, trying to learn something.
Well, I do like to think that I'm pretty good because I've had lots of practice at just putting my hand up when I fuck up, because I do it a lot. So over the years, it's become quite easy to be like, I'm really sorry, and it's exactly what you were saying earlier on, man. People do appreciate it, but I have everybody has an ego for sure, but I'm not out to boost my ego. I'm just out to enjoy myself, and what I enjoy is seeing people learn and grow, and learning and grow myself as a result of it. Like so, it's all good stuff, man.
Well, the student massively respects complete honesty, and we all make mistakes, no matter how good you are. No one is sort of, the ultimate king of flying. We all do things that don't help the situation. Every now and then you will burble your student and they will fall off the position. It's going to happen, especially if they're moving around the sky a lot. And all of a sudden you're like, I've got to get out the way, but you accidentally burbled them and they fall off it. You need to say, well, you were doing a great job there, but as you were moving towards me, as I'm like moving out of the way, you can see, I burble your leg and you fall off that. But if that hadn't happened, I think you'd have stayed flying.
Exactly.
The position's pretty good. It's just got some movement or something like that. Being totally honest with what's actually happened. And you cannot pull the wool over anyone's eyes. And the moment someone senses that you're trying to bullshit them, that is the end of the relationship. You 100%. You can't actually crawl back from that. Once someone thinks that you're willing to bullshit them once, that's it. You're kind of done.
Good. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Paul. And obviously, thanks to everybody else for watching. We've got to the end of another episode.
Thanks, guys. Hopefully, we didn't bore you too much. Until next time.
We probably did, man. Right, Mr. Capsey, it's been a pleasure, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'm sure we're going to catch up in the next day or two anyway, man. Okay?
Cheers, mate.
Awesome. Take care, bro.
Ciao. Patrick and Keanu, thank you very much for teaching us everything we know, basically.